My estranged sister tried to sabotage my dream business launch, but karma had other plans, and I got the ultimate revenge. I'm still reeling from everything that happened last week, and I honestly don't know where to begin. My head is spinning, and I just need to get this all out there, anonymously, before I explode. For context, I, 32, female, have an older sister, Sarah, 35, female, with whom I've had a strained relationship for as long as I can remember. It's not just typical sibling rivalry, it's a deep-seated resentment that stems from our childhood and has only festered with age. Our parents, bless their hearts, tried to be fair, but Sarah always had a way of making herself the victim or the star, depending on what suited her narrative at the time. I was always the quiet, artistic one, content in my own world, while Sarah craved attention and validation, often at my expense. Growing up, Sarah was incredibly manipulative. She'd subtly undermine my achievements, spread rumors about me to our mutual friends, and generally make my life a living hell. If I got a good grade, she'd brag about her even better one. If I had a new crush, she'd conveniently start showing interest in him herself. Our parents, perhaps exhausted by her constant dramatics, often brushed her behavior off as just Sarah being Sarah or told me to be the bigger person. This constant invalidation of my feelings created a chasm between us that only grew wider as we entered adulthood. Our biggest blowout, before this current debacle, happened 5 years ago. I was working tirelessly on launching an online art gallery, a passion project I had poured my heart and soul into for years. I had saved every penny, taken countless workshops, and networked relentlessly. I was finally on the cusp of securing a major investor who could turn my dream into a reality. I made the mistake of confiding in Sarah, hoping that maybe, just maybe, she could be happy for me for once. Instead, she saw an opportunity. She somehow managed to get in touch with my potential investor, twisted my business proposal, and pitched a similar, albeit poorly conceived, idea as her own. She completely undermined my credibility, suggesting I was inexperienced and flaky. The investor, understandably confused and wary, pulled out. I was devastated. It felt like my world had crumbled. When I confronted Sarah, she feigned innocence, claiming she was just trying to help and that my idea wasn't strong enough anyway. That was the final straw. I cut her out of my life completely. No phone calls, no social media, nothing. Our parents tried to mediate, but I stood firm. I told them that until Sarah genuinely apologized and acknowledged the harm she had caused, I wanted nothing to do with her. The apology never came. For 5 years, I focused on rebuilding. It was hard, incredibly hard, to pick up the pieces after that betrayal. But I'm not one to give up. I went back to the drawing board, refined my business plan, and found new investors, albeit smaller ones, who believed in my vision. I worked harder than ever, often pulling all-nighters, fueled by coffee and the burning desire to prove Sarah, and everyone who doubted me, wrong. My online gallery, Ethereal Canvas, slowly but surely gained traction. I started representing emerging artists, hosting virtual exhibitions, and building a loyal clientele. It was a slow climb, but it was mine. Fast forward to a few months ago. Ethereal Canvas was finally ready for its physical debut. I had secured a prime location in a bustling art district, a beautiful space with high ceilings and ample natural light. I had poured all my remaining savings, and even taken out a small business loan, to make this grand opening perfect. This wasn't just another step, it was the step. A physical gallery meant more visibility, more prestige, and the chance to truly connect with art lovers in a tangible way. The grand opening was scheduled for last Saturday, and I had been working non-stop for months to prepare. Invitations were sent, catering was arranged, and the artwork was meticulously curated and hung. I was buzzing with a mixture of excitement and nerves. My parents, despite our estrangement from Sarah, had remained supportive of my artistic endeavors. They were, understandably, caught in the middle, but they made an effort to show up for me. They had been invited to the grand opening, and I was genuinely happy they were coming. What I didn't anticipate was that they would bring Sarah. I found out Sarah was coming the day before the opening when my mother casually mentioned, "Oh, Sarah's going to join us tomorrow. She's really looking forward to seeing your gallery." My heart sank. A wave of dread washed over me. I wanted to scream, to retract the invitation to my parents, to tell them they couldn't come if she was with them. But I couldn't. Not now. Not after all this work. I took a deep breath and tried to remind myself that I was an adult, that I could handle this. I told myself she wouldn't dare cause a scene at my grand opening. I was wrong. So incredibly wrong. The day of the opening arrived, and everything was going perfectly. The gallery was filled with people, the atmosphere was vibrant, and I was on cloud 9. I was greeting guests, chatting with artists, and feeling an immense sense of accomplishment. Then, around an hour into the event, my parents arrived, and trailing behind them, like a dark cloud, was Sarah. She was dressed in an overly elaborate, attention-grabbing dress, completely out of place for an art gallery opening. Her presence immediately sucked some of the joy out of the room for me. I forced a polite smile and greeted my parents, pointedly ignoring Sarah. She, however, wasn't going to be ignored. She immediately launched into a loud, performative congratulations, complete with an air kiss that didn't even come close to my cheek. "Oh, darling sister, your little gallery is just adorable," she gushed, loud enough for several nearby guests to hear. "So quaint. It reminds me of those pop-up shops people do when they're just starting out." My blood boiled, but I plastered on a fake smile and mumbled a thank you, trying to steer her away from any potential clients. She wasn't having it. Throughout the evening, Sarah made a conscious effort to undermine me. She'd follow me around, interjecting herself into conversations with guests, offering unsolicited and often negative critiques of the artwork. "Oh, this piece? It's interesting, but I feel like the artist could have used a bolder color palette, don't you think?" She'd say to a potential buyer, completely dismissing the artist's subtle nuances. She even tried to subtly spread rumors, whispering to one of my artists, "Did you know my name?" Almost lost her first gallery space because she couldn't manage her finances properly. The artist, thankfully, just looked at her blankly and walked away. My parents, bless them, seemed oblivious to her machinations, or perhaps they were just too afraid to confront her. I was seething. This was my moment, my accomplishment, and she was systematically trying to tear it down. I kept my composure, though, reminding myself that a public outburst would only play into her hands. I smiled through gritted teeth, deflected her passive-aggressive comments, and tried my best to shine despite her dark presence. Then came the grand finale of her sabotage attempt. Towards the end of the evening, as I was preparing to give a brief speech thanking everyone for coming, I noticed Sarah heading towards the main display, where my most prized piece, a large, intricate abstract painting by a renowned local artist, was prominently featured. It was the centerpiece of the entire exhibition, and I had spent months negotiating to get it for the opening. I had even arranged for the artist herself to be present, and she was currently chatting with a group of admirers nearby that I watched in horror as Sarah, with a malicious glint in her eye, accidentally bumped into a pedestal holding a delicate, sculptural vase, sending it crashing to the floor with a loud shatter. The noise cut through the ambient chatter, and all eyes turned to her. She immediately put on her best innocent act, gasping and clutching her chest. "Oh my goodness. How clumsy of me. I'm so sorry. This gallery is just a bit too crowded, isn't it?" she exclaimed, glancing pointedly at me. The artist, who had just finished her conversation, rushed over, her face a mask of concern. The vase, while not the most expensive piece, was one of her favorites and incredibly intricate. Just as I was about to rush over and try to salvage the situation, something unexpected happened. A man, who had been standing quietly near the back of the gallery, stepped forward. He was tall, impeccably dressed, and had an air of quiet authority about him. I vaguely recognized him as one of the investors who had initially pulled out of my art gallery project 5 years ago, the one Sarah had so successfully alienated. I hadn't seen him since. He had apparently returned to the city recently and had been invited to the opening by a mutual acquaintance. I felt a fresh wave of mortification wash over me. This was all going spectacularly wrong. The man, Mr. Davies, calmly walked over to Sarah, who was still making a show of her distress. "Madam," he said, his voice quiet but firm, "I believe you've caused some damage." Sarah, clearly flustered that someone was actually calling her out, tried to charm him. "Oh, it was a complete accident, sir. This place is just so bustling, and the lighting is a bit dim, wouldn't you say?" Mr. Davies simply raised an eyebrow. "I believe the lighting is perfectly adequate for showcasing art, and I observed your actions quite clearly. It was no accident." Sarah's face turned crimson. "How dare you accuse me?" she hissed, her charming facade beginning to crack. "Do you even know who I am?" Mr. Davies gave a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "I believe I do. You are the sister of the gallery owner, Ms., my last name." And if memory serves, you are also the individual who, 5 years ago, attempted to discredit Ms., my last name, as original business proposal, claiming it was her own, and then proceeded to present a rather uninspired, derivative version of it to me. The silence in the gallery was deafening. Every single person was staring at Sarah, then at me, then back at Sarah. My parents looked like they wanted the floor to swallow them whole. Sarah's jaw dropped. She looked like a deer caught in headlights. I don't know what you're talking about, she stammered, her voice high-pitched and panicky. Mr. Davies calmly continued, "Oh, I assure you, I remember quite distinctly. I was very impressed with Ms., my last name's initial vision, but your interference created a cloud of doubt that ultimately led me to withdraw my investment. A decision, I might add, I have regretted ever since." He then turned to me, a genuine smile gracing his lips. "Ms., my last name, I must apologize for my short-sightedness all those years ago. Your vision, your perseverance, and your talent are truly remarkable. This gallery is magnificent." The artist whose vase had been broken, having heard everything, stepped forward and placed a comforting hand on my arm. She then turned to Sarah, her eyes blazing. "You sabotaged her? You broke my vase on purpose? Get out of my sight, you vile woman." That's when it all escalated. Another guest, a prominent art critic who had been a quiet supporter of ethereal canvas, chimed in. "I remember hearing whispers about that incident 5 years ago. It seems Ms., my last name, has overcome significant obstacles, not least of which is a truly unsupportive sibling." The dam broke. Other guests, some of whom had witnessed Sarah's earlier attempts at undermining me, started murmuring in agreement. The entire atmosphere shifted from a celebratory buzz to a collective condemnation of Sarah. She was cornered, exposed, and utterly humiliated. Sarah, seeing her carefully constructed facade shatter around her, did what she always did when faced with genuine accountability. She became enraged. "You're all lying," she shrieked, her voice echoing through the stunned gallery. "This is a conspiracy. You're just jealous of me." She then lunged at me, surprisingly, trying to grab my arm. I instinctively recoiled, and in doing so, she stumbled backwards, tripping over her own feet, and fell right into the aforementioned main display, where my prized painting was hanging. There was a sickening ripping sound as the painting, a large canvas, tore from its moorings and came crashing down, its wooden frame splintering as it hit the polished concrete floor. The room gasped. The silence that followed was even more profound than before. Everyone stared, horrified, at the ruined painting, then at Sarah, who was now sprawled on the floor amidst the debris, a look of pure shock on her face. The artist who owned the painting let out a small, choked sob that I felt a cold, calm fury wash over me. 5 years of suppressed anger, of hurt, of resentment, all bubbled to the surface. I walked over to where Sarah lay, utterly defeated, and looked down at her. "Get out," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, but with an intensity that cut through the silence. "Get out of my gallery, out of my life, and never, ever come near me again." My parents, finally snapping out of their stunned silence, rushed to Sarah's side, trying to help her up. My father, looking utterly ashamed, tried to apologize to me. "I'm so sorry, sweetie, we had no idea," I held up a hand. "Dad, I love you and Mom, but you enabled her for far too long. This is the consequence of that." Mr. Davies then stepped forward again, addressing the stunned crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, accidents happen, but malicious intent is another matter entirely. Ms., my last name, has built something truly special here, despite facing undue adversity. I, for one, would like to make amends for my past error in judgment. I'm prepared to offer a significant investment to Ethereal Canvas, not just to replace the damaged artwork, but to ensure this gallery thrives and continues to support talented artists." A ripple of applause went through the room. Several other guests, clearly impressed by his decisive action and by my handling of the situation, approached me, expressing their condolences for the damage and their admiration for my resilience. Some even offered to purchase other pieces in the gallery on the spot. Sarah, with my parents' help, scrambled out of the gallery, her face blotchy with tears and humiliation. She didn't look back. And honestly, I don't think she ever will. The rest of the evening was a blur. My team and some kind guests helped clean up the broken vase and the damaged painting. The artist, while heartbroken about her piece, was incredibly touched by the outpouring of support and Mr. Davies' generous offer to commission a new piece, or even several new pieces, to replace the damaged one. After everyone had left, and the gallery was finally quiet, I stood amidst the remnants of what should have been a perfect evening, and I felt a strange sense of peace. The initial devastation over the damaged artwork was still there, but it was overshadowed by a profound feeling of liberation. Sarah's toxicity had been exposed, not by me directly, but by her own actions and the intervention of someone who had witnessed her past cruelty. Karma, it seemed, had finally caught up with her. Mr. Davey stayed behind to talk to me, genuinely apologetic for his previous withdrawal and full of praise for my business. He made a substantial offer, far more than I had ever dreamed of, not just to cover the damages but to significantly expand Ethereal Canvas. He said he saw a strength and integrity in me that he rarely encountered, and he wanted to be a part of my success. I accepted, of course, feeling a profound sense of vindication.